Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're zooming out from the standard world-renowned mythology of the Himalayas, and honestly, we're uncovering something pretty unexpected. We're going to look at a massive, completely hidden economic engine that is actively sustaining remote communities today. You know, it's easy to think of the Himalayas as just this place of static, ancient monuments, right? But the reality on the ground is so much more dynamic, deeply cultural, and surprisingly economic. I want to kick things off with this brilliant excerpt from a 12th century poem. Listen, O Lord of the meeting rivers, things standing shall fall, but the moving ever shall stay. It's such a profound thought, isn't it? It perfectly captures how living, moving cultural traditions, the things people actually do, sing, and trade, outlast standing stone monuments. Keep this idea of the moving ever staying in the back of your mind, because it's the absolute core of what we're unraveling today.
We're starting out at the breathtaking, sacred birthplace of the Ganga. This pristine landscape in the upper Ganga region isn't just about glacial moraines and stunning alpine peaks. It's a space where deeply revered spiritual myths and the natural environment are totally inseparable. To actually grasp the economy and the people of Uttarakhand, you've got to first understand the sacred waters that quite literally shape their entire world.
And the mythological lineage of these waters? It's an epic origin story. The ancient texts tell us the river didn't just flow naturally, it was deliberately brought down from heaven. It all started with Kapil Muni's curse, which reduced ancestors to ashes. Then King Bhagirath performed an unbelievable 14,000 years of penance just to bring the divine river down for their salvation. And to keep the earth from shattering under all that force, Lord Shiva captured the Ganga right in his hair. But here's the thing, this isn't just some old story. The river was brought down strictly for the salvation of ancestors, and that specific ritual of pinned gone is still practiced by thousands of pilgrims on these exact riverbanks today.
So, following the flow of these sacred waters, the Bhagirathi and Alaknanda rivers eventually merge. And this brings us to a really crucial question about Devprayag. It's the spectacular confluence where those rivers meet, and the Ganga officially gets its name. Mythology says even the gods sought out these very waters for purification. So why exactly did Lord Rama, a totally central figure in Indian mythology, come to this specific confluence?
Well, the answer lies at the ancient Raghunath Temple at Devprayag. According to the lore, Lord Rama actually performed 11 years of profound penance right here. He was purifying himself, atoning for the slaying of Ravana, who was a Brahmin by birth. To reach this serene temple today, pilgrims still climb a steep flight of 108 steps. Every single step is highly symbolic, representing this inward journey towards spiritual cleansing and peace. It's essentially a powerful physical monument to an ancient faith.
Which brings us to our first main theme, a living cultural archive. Remember that poem from the beginning? The moving ever shall stay? Well, this is exactly where we see that in action. The real cultural lifeblood of this region isn't locked up in stone temples. It's in massive seasonal gatherings. Communities organize these melas, or fairs, into three distinct categories. You've got deity-centered fairs, like the Nanda Devi Rajdat, which are heavily focused on rituals and worship. Then you have agrarian fairs, like the Uttarakhand Mela, totally tied to the agricultural cycle for seed and produce exchange. And finally, river confluence fairs, like the one at Devprayag, which brilliantly blend pilgrimage with historical, interregional trade. So these aren't just your standard festivals. They're incredibly complex events, where worship, agriculture, and commerce completely merge together.
And these gatherings are absolutely vital. They are the life support system for Uttarakhand's intangible cultural heritage. We're talking about ancient traditions like the Pandav Nritya, which is a ritual dance drama of the Mahabharata, or Jagar, a shamanistic oral tradition, the Cholia martial dance, and intricate traditional craftsmanship like ringal bamboo weaving, aipan art, and copperware. Without these specific fairs, providing a dedicated audience, a social space, and crucially a marketplace, these ancient arts would literally cease to exist. They absolutely require the communal energy of the fair to survive.
Moving on to part 2, the invisible economy, a massive statistical blind spot.
So how does all this mythology and culture tie into hard, on-the-ground rural economics? Well, it turns out these spiritual events are hiding a massive economic reality. Think about this staggering number for a second, 79.3%. According to periodic labor force surveys, that is the self-employment rate among rural women in Uttarakhand. A
A huge chunk of this rural workforce, artisans, petty traders, small-scale service providers, they rely heavily on the seasonal cash income generated at these exact traditional fairs. For a lot of these households, this temporary seasonal cash injection is quite literally what keeps them afloat for the rest of the year.
And the scale we're talking about is vast. There are around 1.2 lakhs, so that's 120,000 beneficiaries in the Hill District craft sector alone. For these thousands of traditional weavers, artists, and metalworkers, these temporary seasonal fairs are essentially their primary domestic marketplace. Think about that. Government craft emporiums and digital retail platforms, they account for under 15% of their total sales. The traditional fair circuit is where the real economic survival actually happens.
But here is the shocking twist. Despite literally sustaining entire communities, the economic data of these massive events is completely undocumented by the state. The on-the-ground reality is that events like the Uttarakhand Mela draw tens of thousands of people, conducting massive trade over just 3 days. But in official government datasets, they are structurally invisible. Because the transactions are almost entirely in cash and the stalls are just temporary, there are absolutely no official records of fair-specific employment, cash flow, or income. They exist in a total statistical blind spot.
And that brings us to our final section. Looming threats, unraveling the ancient tapestry.
Because this vital economy is statistically invisible, policymakers simply can't protect what they can't measure. And right now, research highlights a really dangerous convergence of 4 intersecting threats that are actively tearing at this cultural fabric. First up, demographic outmigration is literally emptying communities, leaving behind what are known as ghost villages. Second, ecological disruptions and climate shifts are altering the very river confluences these fairs rely on. Third, there's intense commercial pressure from a massive influx of cheap, machine-made goods flooding in from the plains, completely displacing local artisans. And finally, institutional neglect. Simply because the data is missing, there is zero targeted infrastructure or financial support for the vendors and performers who actually make these fairs happen.
So, to wrap up this explainer, we really need to ask ourselves a critical question. And it brings us full circle back to that 12th century poem. If this invisible, informal economy collapses under the weight of these modern threats and the local people are forced to leave, what exactly happens to the living heritage? Will these sacred Himalayan rivers and ancient stone temples become just silent, empty monuments to a lost culture? It's a pretty profound challenge, and it shows exactly why understanding and measuring this hidden economy isn't just an academic exercise, it's absolutely vital today.